Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the internet's coolest Catholic podcast.
We're so cool, man.
We're so cool. Tonight
We're so
talking
cool,
all about
and we're so righteous. We're righteous and cool, you know?
Yes, yeah.
Like
Righteously
cool is
cool and awesome.
Well, like, you know, like the Bible's so cool, and like, you know, like backwards hat, and you like
Backwards
you get
hat.
your
April
jeans,
jacket?
baggy jeans.
April
You do
jacket
this with
design?
your hands.
Yeah.
It's so cool, man. Yeah.
I like the
90s
thing.
ride again.
Do you have how many rings is the appropriate amount for coolness sake? Because if you have too many, it becomes a little too try hard. But I think if you have like a few, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and
what about like the thing? What about the ring that says like something across in a rectangle? You know, that has like where it's like a multiple like it goes in multiple fingers. Like it says like lads or something like that.
No, it's totally cool now, and like
it's cool.
You know,
punks
like
with an
Christianity used to be all like stuffy, but now
it's
cool. Like you can get tattoos. You could get the Book of Deuteronomy tattooed on your. Wait a minute.
Book of Deuteronomy.
That might. There might be a
venial sin of sacrilege.
There might be something mentioned in the Book of Deuteronomy about that. Oops.
Oh, oops. Oh, yeah. Well, you could get the Prima Pars question 3 Article 2 tattooed to your back, James.
It would have been funnier if you had like quoted the Secunda Secunde article about mutilation.
Yeah, just make it that arbitrary. Yeah, that'd be great.
Said contra.
So
what am I doing with my life?
So there's a few things that have been kind of happening in the news. So Pope Francis has been.
I'm so excited already.
Yeah, he's been making his trip to Hungary, and so he says, be open to loving with your hearts, and so he's meeting with the cardinal there, and he's saying nice things about good stuff, and there's some of the things are a little bit what should I say, like it's insipid, a little bit too strong a term, but like sort of like I remember when he said that he repeated his thing for World Youth Day, don't be a couch potato, while he's holding a Rubik's Cube. I guess
who doesn't love stale platitudes, please?
Yeah, body break.
There's nothing like a very old man telling you just like basically what you can get out of a fortune cookie.
And the people are mad.
The world will listen.
People are mad because conservatives are mad because he's telling them that they should be open to immigration.
I definitely think that. Okay, so here's the thing about Hungarians.
Yeah.
As a friend of mine once said, Hungarians are the only people who could come into a revolving door behind you and leave the revolving door in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're particularly clever, and like the rest of Eastern Europeans, they're not going to listen to anyone.
Sure, yeah.
Which is a mixture of both, it's both very good and very frustrating, depending on what you're trying to get across. So yeah, that's going to have zero effect on Hungary.
Well, this one was really good. I like to highlight, some of the good things that he's doing. He's saying solutions to loss of faith come from the tabernacle, not the computer. So there we go. Talking about Jesus' presence in the Eucharist. So he's doing some good papally things. And then also, but unfortunately, he also, of course, immediately accepted the resignation of Bishop Tobin, the good Tobin from Rhode Island, and brought in a nice rotund man who was a seminary professor. Seems to be right up the trajectory. I remember there was a pretty sort of like run of the mill parish, but well, not really run of the mill, because he was pretty like traditional, like he would celebrate the Latin Mass and stuff. But he came up with like sort of a very good sort of general criticism that one of the things that Pope Francis was talking about early on that he was actually excited about was sort of like changing sort of the process of electing bishops to actually have to elevating priests who actually had some like pastoral experience. Because my former rector actually was elevated, but he literally only had, I think, like a year and a half of experience of actually working in a parish.
Yeah, it's weird that they retire.
Well, they have to. They have to actually.
Yeah, it's weird that they're required to retire, not that the popes, like they can't move anymore, and the pope's like, hey, maybe you should take the bench. It's weird that they're like, you hit an age,
yeah,
and then you're done. Like it's very modern.
Yeah, was that
it's an incredibly modern idea. Like before, you just go until you're dead, man. You just go until your legs don't move anymore.
So the publishers actually, I do have something else that I want to that I do want to kind of share this on sort of like a bit of a lighter note. This is that for a bit of levity. So our friend, whatchamacallit, is at it again. But he's he's brought in, what's his name? The Tapley, William Tapley, is kind of come up with another prophecy. So the Vatican lightning strike reveals Donald Trump. It's so cool. So cool that
so cool.
that wiki.
Break it apart like this. I got it right. Yeah, I think you can see that there's a lightning strike there.
It's a lightning strike
And you break it apart like this.
So this is the lightning strike that hit the Vatican when Pope Francis was elected. Just to clarify, yeah.
I think this is good stuff.
Yeah.
I am so confused. What is going on right now?
How are you confused? This is the clearest thing possible.
I know.
This is the lightning.
This is actually my favorite clip from Michael. I can't remember his name.
Michael Lofton?
Right?
Yeah, Michael Lofton, yeah.
And on one side is an image of Donald Trump. You can see his chin.
That's amazing!
Nose,
yes!
Forehead. And you can see his double chin. He's a little.
Yes!
I'm not seeing it. Are y'all seeing it? Do y'all see?
I
Trump
saw
in
it
the
immediately. As soon as he took up the picture and he said Donald Trump, I was like, oh, he's the chosen one.
No, I'm not seeing it. I'm not.
A little overweight.
Come on.
The other
look
side
harder.
is a picture of.
He does.
Maybe you can see it. Moses. Notice his chin. Notice his kind of smash in nose. Let me show you that.
This
What?
is so good.
That's so good.
Break it down. If I can.
Stop acting
show
like you
these
don't
two
understand.
separated. This is what it looks like when I have separated the lightning strike. And I think you can see that that is.
Look at it right there.
Donald Trump.
It's the chosen one. You understand?
He sees it. Yeah, he sees it.
That's good. That's
I
good.
know.
That's the correct reaction, by the way.
I know. It's amazing.
I can kind of see it.
He just
I
loses
kind of
it.
see it now that he's.
He doesn't.
Oh, who wouldn't lose it? That's the funniest thing.
It's the best thing ever. William Tapley. I wonder if he's actually like a genius. Like it would be like if he actually is just like sort of like memeing all of us.
You
like
can
remember,
win. Just don't sin.
State of
Please
grace,
don't
you
watch
must stay in.
pornography.
Yeah. And then it's like, you can win if you never do the filthy sins of flesh. Just don't sin. Think of Mary and Jesus in the creche. You can win. Just don't sin.
It's like it's yeah.
It's kind of funny because like we're already sort of like in that video is kind of encompassing sort of this spectrum of things sort of within Christian that have to do with like coolness, because you have a kind of this like really sort of like oblivious sort of like obviously uncool side, and this like one side that's like kind of that's trying to be cool. And yeah, and I just there was another thing that kind of came up to me that kind of that reminded me of sort of like kind of the spectrum of just like sort of oblivious, sort of like just no sort of sense of decorum at all, which was so this there's this new movie coming out, Nefarious, which is from the producers of God's Not Dead, and it's about this atheist about this atheist psychologist who comes and interviews this possessed serial killer. And but it's but this was but this is one of the reactions to that that movie thing. Where is it here? Yeah, here we go. Just you can just kind of tell what this guy's take is going to be from right from the beginning, from the onset. Just that that nervous like I've just seen that so many times.
Is this like what's this guy's deal though? Is he like
he's saying that Nefarious is a dangerous movie, that he's commenting on.
Okay, but is he like, is this from like a Catholic perspective? Is he
no, I think this guy's an evangelical guy. Yeah.
So Nefarious, you probably know enough about it now that it's a story about a guy in prison who's sentenced to death, and atheists that are inhabiting this man Edward. A movie for non-Christians. They wanted a regular horror movie, people showing up for this movie and getting a Christian message from it. Is there a Christian message here? For Christians, a little bit. For non-Christians, I don't know if they're going to get the reference. I mean, there are reviews from non-Christians already in Nefarious. The movie makers, in order to make this movie, said that they could not have a cheesy redemption at the end. They couldn't have a where the psychologist is saved at the end.
So he's mad because
he's mad that there wasn't an altar call at the end or whatever.
Yeah. He's
I mean, like this, but the Daily Wire's been on about this with their sort of like so far I think it's been like gun propaganda movies, but the like the single mom happens to have like 13 AK-47s and she's gonna save the day, but it's not gonna be cheesy, it's gonna be graphic, so like people's heads are gonna explode or something, whatever. So however it gets sold by like Ben Shapiro, I don't know, but
so they're happy about that.
What?
So the wait, I'm confused. So what's Daily Wire?
So like there's been this similar tactic with the Daily Wire. They're like, oh, we're gonna make movies for conservatives.
Yeah.
And they're making these movies and they're mostly like gun propaganda. I mean, like whatever with firearms.
Sure.
It's America is out of control. As far as
it's kind of this guy kind of
just calm down.
This guy kind of he sounds like that that guy, the Living on the City guy. He's got the same voice.
Well, they're all. What's wrong with this country that they're all from? It's insanity.
I don't know, man.
Like they're like, well, we're the good guys who believe in the Bible. It's just like deeply uninformed about things, and then the other side is just like deeply uninformed about things, and
it's just I don't know how it works as a country, because even from the beginning, you had this sort of like weird, like some of the original settlers. You had Puritans, and then these people setting up unilateralism shrines. Like, so it was
everyone except Catholics, because it was illegal in 12 out of the original 13 colonies to be Catholic. And one of the main triggers for the revolution in the first place was the Quebec Act. They mention it in the official documents that George III granted clemency to the Catholics in Quebec to practice their religion.
Right.
And that's why they're rebelling against this evil papistical king.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was so the so it was, but it obviously was the taxation as well.
Well, Jefferson mentions the Quebec Act very strongly, actually.
Right.
Yeah, it was one of their primary reasons.
But how do they
Was that
allow
the
how do
evil
they allow
tyrannical
Lord,
crown was letting Catholics run around willy-nilly without asking any questions.
but how did they allow then like Lord Baltimore to found his colony? Because he was a Federalist, so he would have been totally against that.
I'm not sure on that level.
Because if he was,
I have this nice book about the history of the church in America that I have never bothered to crack open yet. So
yeah, that'd actually be interesting to dive into that a little more deeply.
I know that a lot of anti-Catholicism was original to the. I mean, you can look it up if you want to see the little political cartoon they did about like King George and a bunch of Catholic bishops and the devil dancing around together or whatever.
But we're getting waylaid from our main topic, which is about coolness. We have to be cool, James, and definitely sort of not veer off topic into our interesting anecdotes, because that wouldn't be cool.
Our interesting anecdotes about the non-functionality of the United States of America. Yeah, I suppose. But yeah, you get these guys, and they're just, I don't know.
But where's the is there a mean like in like do we even have to like? Is there some sort of like aesthetic that we should really be like pursuing? Like, I mean, is there sort of like between sort of, I don't know, like cool and sort of like absolutely sort of dorky and inept on one side, and sort of like uber sort of like fashionable and sort of cloying on the other side?
No, well, so Chesterton talks about how fashion is a form of temporary madness.
Right.
And so we shouldn't fall into fashions. That's one of the things that, like...
Yeah, maybe it's a false dichotomy.
That's one of the things that the coolness of Christianity in the 80s and 90s, that attempt that sort of culminated in the baptism and conversion into evangelical Christianity of all these rock icons in the early 2000s.
Right. Well, even earlier than that too. Like we've got that.
Yeah, but it just kind of like piles up. Please.
I will bring it up. Yeah.
Cue up Striper for us.
I will. Yeah. This is good stuff. This is what it.
The coolest metal band that ever existed.
This is definitely what it means to be a Christian. It's just. So metal. It's a gnarly riff right there.
It's the most Van Halen thing I can imagine.
Oh. All right, I've had enough. It's so hard to look away. Oh, look, what's he wearing? Oh no, I don't want to hear anything about it. This is I'm sorry, friend.
I remember what's his name, Scott or whatever from Anthrax, giving an interview where they like Striper opened for Anthrax at one point.
So weird.
In like the 80s, and it was a gong show, and they were like throwing Bibles off the stage at all these like Anthrax fans who were less than interested in being proselytized at the moment, you know. Yeah, so that's that was an interesting idea. Back to the old drawing board, but you know, like, gotta get that new evangelization, because the old one, you know, like St. Paul.
Yeah, but I just don't
St. Boniface, you know, St. Patrick, none of that's working.
I like to nail down kind of like what is that like impetus like within like evangelicalism to sort of create a Christian version of everything? like like the unblack metal. We were talking about this earlier. How like like black metal, which is just like obviously satanic music from its origin, and we have to.
Well, it just sounds like it's it's the sound. It's just like like and then like screeching guitars and like discordant
They've got the
notes
tremolo picking.
repeatedly, like like blast beats and like
The
it
pillow.
sounds. It sounds terrible. It just sounds bad, and it's the point.
But they're talking about
they
have lyrics about inverting the inverted cross.
Yeah, and they're like smashing pentagrams with like their dad's claw hammer and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool.
So metal. And then they put on like the makeup, the white makeup with the black eyes, so they look like raccoons.
And they put
knock off King Diamond raccoons with like those nail armbands that go out like this far. They bought a bunch of nails at Home Depot and stuck them in like a piece of leather that they bought.
Nice. But yeah, but I know like families who just be like think that this is kind of like a good thing that that it exists, which is such a weird. It's just so weird to me to think that there's just like, oh yeah, we have to. As long as we have a Christian version, then it's like I mean, even with this movie, like they wanted to get into the horror genre and reach out to sort of like horror like viewers.
Yeah, I've met a few people who are into horror movies, and I don't think.
Well, because it's gotten terrible reviews. Because then,
well, I don't think that you're gonna get them.
Well, I guess like I've heard like some priests recommend it and stuff because they said like exorcists actually say that it's actually quite an accurate depiction of possession. And,
yeah, but that's Catholics, not evangelicals.
I know, yeah. Yeah, and they say, and also, they in the movie they kind of describes like how abortion is actually sort of like a satanic rite and stuff like that. So it's yeah, so like I mean, like they are trying to sort of like get sort of some of that message out there, but obviously like but no one's gonna see, but I don't think any unless you're like really an undiscerning like horror movie that you just see like every time there's a new horror movie that you go see it, and then you get tricked into this movie where they have this, like, we got you. Yeah.
Well, but is it a good horror movie? We talked about horror.
We did, yeah.
I didn't watch it. I'm not interested in them, but we talked about the nature of horror as a sort of form of catharsis and
right.
Has a bit of an educative function as well. Does it fulfill that function? Have you seen it? I don't know. Like,
I haven't seen it. I'm probably gonna
because
see it,
because the evangelical outrage is just like it's just
I think they've improved quite a bit. Like I didn't see Unplanned, but I've heard that one is actually a lot better than the God's Not Dead trilogy. It has like it's just a lot less evangelical in its aesthetic, I suppose.
But I do think if his chief criticism is that there's no like altar call moment, that's kind of then it's not a tragedy.
Yeah.
Right. And so we talked about this, how horror movies were actually a derivation of the ancient genre of tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
And so if everyone at the end experiences sort of, if you see a tragedy unfold, yeah. Or if you see I'm going to guess maybe that the psychologist doesn't choose to believe.
Yeah. I think so, yeah.
If you see a lack of belief, then that also is an educative function. And I think,
sure, yeah.
I think that actually that's a very important, that's an important lesson for American evangelicals and everyone, is that just because something is revealed to them doesn't mean they'll accept it.
Yeah, that's true.
You see this obsession amongst evangelicals, for example. I don't know what his personal take is, but publicly he always kind of like cops out. Jordan Peterson. American evangelicals are obsessed with Jordan Peterson.
Oh, really? And
But-
yeah, that makes
yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's always saying like, "Oh, I act as though God existed," which is like a bit of a Kantian backhatch into whether or not you actually believe.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, you could present as much evidence as you want to some people, they will not believe.
Yeah.
You know, and in the Gospels, that's what occurs. The Pharisees witness miracles,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Hey, can you okay, fine, you raised some people from the dead, but maybe could you
Yeah.
could you do something a little more impressive? I just need a little bit more." That's a lie. There's nothing that will make them believe because
that's true.
they've made the choice. And this is something that that some of the wacky Nouvelle theologians don't understand when they start talking about demons, is that demons have angels have they understand things through their own essence, so they don't have a ratiocinative process of understanding. They don't go through the whole Sherlock Holmes mystery when they're trying to uncover what's going on. They don't
Right.
they don't look for evidence, they don't think things through. They look at something once, they understand it right down to the degree that
That
their
they're
essence
capable
is
of.
like that thing.
Yeah.
Now, when the demons made a choice, all they had to do was make one choice.
Yeah.
Because they understood the consequences of their actions, and they made the choice anyway.
Yeah, actually, I just watched a clip of that earlier today. And Father Ripperger actually is talking about that, about what demons are, and he says that in his encounter with demons, that that he's brought up like the moment that they were actually created, and where they actually saw the beauty of God's creation, and they'll actually cry, like inevitably. They cry at remembering that beauty that they rejected, but they still rejected it. And even though they
but
were
the choice is made once and for all.
it's
because
interesting though, because that does sort of have a very sort of this is definitely this could potentially plunge us into a huge rabbit hole, but that is kind of a very sort of voluntaristic sort of outlook. But I guess maybe that's the difference between how demons, how the angelic intellect works and the human intellect works.
There's a big
difference
between.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between how the two of them work, and
Well,
it's not
obviously, yeah.
voluntarism. It's but the choice it's an irrational choice, and it's made, it's asserted.
Well, no, but it is voluntarism in a way, because that's that was Scotus's position, that a person could sort of be could see the beatific vision in his goodness.
No. They didn't have a beatific vision.
Oh.
The beatific vision was a reward for the fidelity of the good angels. Yeah, you can't, according to St. Thomas, you can't look away from the beatific vision. Once you have it, you're there. That's you've made your choice.
But does Scotus acknowledge that as well? Because
I don't know. Do I look like I've read all of Scotus to you? Come
no,
on.
but that's kind of the primary. It's one of the primary distinctions between voluntarism and intellectualism, right? Is that there's this idea that even though if you are confronted with goodness, that you understand that you still have the ability, even if you understand that it is a greater good, that you still have the ability not to accept it.
Well, that's what I'd have to go and read this, but that is what occurred with the demons, because but not the beatific vision. They didn't have the they didn't have the vision of God face to face, but through their own essence, they understood God.
Right.
Insofar as their essence. So let's say we read the entire Summa.
Right.
They already knew that God exists, that God was omnipotent, that God, they already knew these things, and they knew that the consequences of their disobedience would be punishment. They already knew these things.
Right.
Consider it very similar to someone who has a lifelong amount of experience, right?
Right.
And then if you were to look at a stove, right, you know what's going to happen if you put your hand on the burner when it's red hot, right?
Sure.
There's no mystery.
No, but
you could do it.
Yeah,
you could do it.
But yeah, no, but St. Thomas's understanding though of like predestination seems to sort of entail that there is sort of a lack of like that there is an ignorance in those who choose not to accept God's goodness.
Yeah, I
That,
think it's a kind of willful ignorance in a
right.
lot of cases.
So it's you're kind of opting for sort of a hybrid then. But I guess St. Thomas always does sort of like when he talks about sort of these areas, he's always sort of like trying to isolate sort of like one part of the human soul, you know. So when he talks about, you know, the intellect in relation to salvation, then you have to always sort of like realize that there are other powers at work that are not necessarily being talked about. I think that's why a lot of people have difficulty with him, because it's hard to kind of keep that into consideration.
Yes. We've gone afield.
We have, but it is cool that
Yeah,
Yeah.
my original point, I think, still stands, is that if a film portrays things that happen, and this happens, people are confronted with overwhelming evidence and reject it all the time.
Yeah.
So there doesn't, I mean, it's unreasonable to put an altar call at the end of every single one of these portrayals if it's going to be art, because you have an entire genre of art that doesn't have an altar call. It's called a tragedy.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Otherwise, it wouldn't be a tragedy. It would be a comedy.
I think he was also like worried that people would be like might be like possessed from watching this movie, because
I don't think that's how it works.
well, because he said they don't give them it doesn't give the audience. That's why he was so worried. Like he looked so concerned at the beginning, because he just was like, because it doesn't give the people the tools that they need to be able to fight against the powers of evil. And he said, and there are trailers, since it's an R-rated movie. There are trailers at the beginning of it where that are legitimately demonic horror movies. And he said he was attacked many times when after watching that. But which is a weird thing to say, but I mean, it's kind of like that kind of does sort of like, it does display sort of something that a lot of times people will sort of spiritualize. I mean, he could have been demonically attacked, but it's so hard for us to actually know when that happens, when we have an experience, whether it's actually coming from ourselves or an external reality, since it's always going to be some sort
if
of
he's
like
an
physical
evangelical, I will put it out there and say probably not. Like if you spill the Coca-Cola that you're drinking in the theater on your lap, you're like, the devil did this to me, like that. No,
So
or
they
you know,
spiritualize
like
everything.
you're like, oh, I went to that horror movie and then I had a naughty thought. You know, I looked at it, there was a naughty billboard outside and I had a naughty thought and that was bad. Like that's not what it is. Like, I don't know. What
You're frozen. Oh yeah, now you're back. Is there? Yeah, there's not really sort of a system to sort of to process sort of the spiritual and natural phenomena, really. Is there within?
Well, they don't have a guide,
evangelicalism?
right? There's no evangelical St. John of the Cross or anything. They don't accept anything except a shoddy translation of the Bible.
Yeah.
Pick one.
Yeah.
Just, like pick one, because they're all of their non-Catholic translations are trash.
Yeah.
You've got the
King James.
We've got like the rarely sufficient version. We've got the non-inspired version, the NIV. Did I say that out loud? Like just bad translations, and then they're like, this is what the word says. Like, you don't know that. No one taught you anything. You're like, well, I read it and I was inspired. Like, man, you could say that about the back of a Cheerios box. You could be William Tapley and see Donald Trump's face in a friggin' lightning bolt. What is that's? It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Stop it. Stop doing this. Okay? We have people who are in charge, and they wear special hats. There's a system. Stop it.
I know. Unfortunately, the people in the hats tend to let
I
us
don't
down
care.
once in a while. Yeah.
It's a matter of principle. Then go back to the dead people who wore the hats and read them.
Yeah. Well, that's sound advice. Yeah.
Read a book is always good advice, John.
Yeah.
Check this out, y'all. Read a book, read a book, read a book, read a book. Read...
Good advice.
Yeah, it's good advice.
That's cool.
Even-
That's
It's
cool
cool.
Christianity
It's
that
straight
is shown
gangster
there.
to read a book, you know?
Straight gangster. Yeah, so there's a rap about it. So it has to be cool.
Yeah, this is a rap about reading books. This is the coolest thing
Yeah,
you
man,
can do.
it's super cool.
Tell the kids.
I'm so glad we got to use that.
Not a magazine, not a sports page. A book, okay? Not a blog post.
That's right.
Pick up the book.
Da Vinci Code.
Not that book. That's not a book. That's like an anti-book. It's like a reverse book.
Oh man.
It somehow makes you less literate when you read it.
It does.
It's like you could, instead of the words going in your mind, it sucks them out into the abyss of the page.
It's kind of yeah. It's maybe it could be like sort of like a. There could be some sort of use for that somehow. If you really want, you to make someone like dumb. There's like a really sort of like evil genius.
John,
Yeah.
if there's an evil genius out there who needs to make many people, many people become dumb, his work here is done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
If anything, he's exceeded the mean.
He has exceeded the mean. Yeah.
He's like, oops, I broke the machine.
Yeah.
It's out of control. I can't stop it now.
Ah!
It's like the Doctor Strangelove where they're trying to turn off the USSR's automatic nuke response.
I think that's kind of
They
like
can't?
it seems like that was kind of happening with AI right now. At least how the narrative is being presented. I don't know if that's actually the case, but I mean, like,
Come
it
on,
seems
there's
like
no
it's really
way.
dumb.
There's no way. It's because
Yeah.
it's no, because it's like an 80s movie
I
script.
know.
Like there's no way.
I know.
There's
yeah.
no way that an 80s movie script is playing out in real life. They're messing with us. They're pulling our legs.
Yeah.
This is a joke right now. They're like, it's trying to escape into the internet.
Coming
Wasn't
alive.
this like no,
It's
this
coming alive.
this is Avengers 2 plot though. Like the Age of Ultron. Like this was the plot. Get out of town. That's
It was
not
such a-
happening.
That was such a just a milestone of cinema. Just the Age of Ultron. I thought it was Nicolas Cage who played the voice of Ultron, but I don't think it was. It was such garbage. Like,
It's
just,
funnier if it was just like Nick Cage and they painted him silver and glued a couple cogs to it.
yeah, that would have been way better. Way better. Just-
He's like singing the Pinocchio
just-
song.
It was profoundly unentertaining.
And what are you talking about? Thor in the pool and he's like naked and he's like, I'm having a vision.
Or when Iron Man swears and then Cap tells him to mind his language.
Mind
And
your
then-
language.
And then Iron
I'm
Man,
from the
Are you guys
50s.
are you guys listening to this guy right now? And there was like that was like kind of the level of banter between them. It's like, oh, so lame. Oh my gosh. But
Isn't it the one too where the Scarlet Witch and not the Scarlet Witch, Black Widow and the Hulk like fall in love with each other because they
Oh,
both
yeah,
had
it
like
was really
traumatizing
weird.
lives or something.
yeah, they were talking about
And they're having like a therapy session.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was so bad.
That's what you want from your superheroes, like having a therapy session. You're like, I feel sad.
Yeah.
This is the greatest
Exactly.
Batman movie ever. Like, I feel sad. Like, I feel sad too. I'm an orphan. Oh, I'm an orphan too. That's what Batman versus Superman should have turned into. They should have just sat on the ground and be like, I'm an orphan too. Oh, my parents. Oh. And then they just like hug.
Yeah,
Ice cream.
yeah, be great. Yeah, it'd be it would probably win an Academy Award. What the heck are we talking about, man? I'm totally.
have taken that left turn at Albuquerque.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! All right, let me look to see what
Let's
I've
recenter.
up
What's
here.
the next thing? I'm sure you had more things lined up.
I
We just
did.
finished talking about a horror movie, apparently.
Yeah. So there was oh yeah.
The
so
Age of
there was-
Ultron, a horror movie.
Yeah. So so there was so there was that like Satan Con thing or whatever that was happening at the at Boston, and people were all in a dizzy about it, and then people showed up actually, so that was kind of cool, from the Society for the Defense of Tradition, Family, and Property, and they were all playing their bagpipes and stuff. Is this an American thing?
I have no idea what's going on here. There's a lot happening.
Yeah, so Satan has no rights, they're saying. So what do you think? Like, do you think this is like a thing that we should be doing? I like processing with like the idea of processing with the religious images. And
You
then
can pause that. That's
yeah.
okay.
Honking and Satan. This is definitely kind of like sort of like the uncool sort of side of Christianity, the side of Christianity. You know what I mean? Like I've been trying to this episode just trying to draw the spectrum, because like there is definitely like an authentic, especially within Catholicism, there's an authentic sort of like expression of Catholicism that definitely is like kind of like profoundly and sort of like almost like self-consciously uncool. And kind of takes pride in it.
Well, I mean, cool is a kind of weird term.
Yeah. I wanted to get into that as part of the discussion. And then these are the people who are going to the to Satan Con or whatever.
Oh man, I bet they read esoteric books like Hermes Trismegistus and like listen to Archon and Faustus and smell like body odor inside of their dark academic library.
That's cool, man. That's
cool.
So
Not
cool.
really. No, because I was like,
they're probably really into what's the name of the the stupid Italian philosopher who has the book The Revolt Against Modernism, the Revolt Against Modernity, I mean, and Ride the Tiger.
Ride the Tiger.
Evola,
you
Julius
can see his
Evola.
stripes, but you know he's clean. Don't you see what I mean? Gotta get away. Holy diver! Sorry.
What made you think of that?
You said Ride the Tiger, man. It's in the song.
Oh, is that in the song?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they probably got that from Evola.
I've got like so many stupid metal lyrics up there. I don't know what to do with all of them. I gotta go away, but I wish there was a book that would suck that out of my brain, but
Oh
well. It happened.
gonna
But I
happen.
was into like the heavy metal scene as a teenager, and this is these were these dorks,
Kind of
these
people.
losers. But this wasn't cool either. They were never cool.
I
They
know.
also got bullied. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this
Goths, like, come on.
Goths, yeah, Goths are definitely not cool. They're kind of like
Or
sort of
like these guys who wear the top hats and are like, I'm into alchemy. Like, you don't know Latin. Shut up.
Yeah, they really like.
And they would
Roger
come up with
Bacon.
these like they would grammatically incorrect Latin, and then you get like this. Oh man, I should have mentioned this in the pre-show, but I just remembered it now, dude. The metal band Catholicos, and then like they have these like metal songs in Latin, but they're all grammatically incorrect. Like everything is in the nominative.
Like Catholicos, yeah. Yeah, that's great.
No, but and it's spelled with a K, which like is wrong too. Yeah, and then what was it was like Sanctus Mysterium. That was the come on. Really? No, this is a grammatical agreement of declinations.
Is there any sort of yeah? Is there any no? Yeah, that would never work. You can never
No,
have
it
an
doesn't
S
work
and an
under any
M.
circumstances.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it'd be you could kind of the Holy One. You could make Sanctus kind of like a substantive for the Holy One, and then you could make Mysterium. You could put it in the locative somehow, even though it's not a noun that would normally take the locative, and you'd be like the Holy One goes to the mystery.
Oh yeah. There we go.
Yeah, that would be about the only way to make it work.
So you have kind of an implied. You would have not an adjective, like an implied sort of
Well, you don't need an adjective if you're using the locative.
Right.
Right. Like goes to is just implied, right?
Right. I never even learned the locative case. Now we're talking about
It's
Latin.
yeah,
because it's in. I thought it was in Greek, but we don't. Yeah.
No, yes and no. Locative is only used. I think you would always use a preposition in Greek. Actually,
Oh,
the
really?
locative is in Lithuanian. You would only use the locative if you were referring to a place name.
Oh, okay.
And mostly in classical prose. Yeah.
There we go. Latin lesson for all our non-viewers, our potential viewers.
Right. If you look up the bit of the Monty Python bit, Romanes eunt domus, right?
Okay.
Not particularly.
Right. Yeah.
Not particularly kind to our religion video film about the life of Brian, but the Latin lesson is very funny, and it is Romanes ite domum, right? And domum takes the locative
Ah.
because he has him by the throat, but it's a place, so it's saying the locative. Yeah. The locative is very rare. It only pops up with the word for house, I think, and then place names.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So to put Mysterium would be a little bit of a stretch, but
yeah, no kidding. That's funny. So yeah, you'd have to use a substantive noun to just to belabor the point. Substantive for
substantive noun, an implied verb, and you'd have to put it in a case that it's not normally supposed to take. So it could be like esoteric poetry.
Yeah, that's great.
Or like Tacitus, which is like reading a cheese grater with your eyes. I hate Tacitus so much.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's awful. He's exceeded the mean of parsimony with the way that he speaks. And what does the sentence even say? Anyway, we've derailed again.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of cool. Kind of a cool.
Cool. Latin is cool. Look at my top hat, guys.
Yeah. But I don't know. So I guess what is the? Is there a direction to sort of go in that? Should we be sort of just obviously sort of because we do there is sort of a countercultural element to being Catholic for sure. You want to go against sort of the flow of what culture is doing, but I mean you also don't want to be completely sort of not anachronistic, but sort of completely just or completely oblivious on one hand, I suppose. But I mean, I guess everyone's going to do their own thing. There's the church isn't going to tell people, oh, don't be too sort of arcane in the way that you dress, and or don't be too sort of like hip and cool. So I don't know, like what should we be striving for? In sort
Yeah,
of
but
like
the problem
aesthetic?
here is
Yeah.
that cool. So cool is a concept. If we want to get let me get a little
Yeah.
history here. So cool is a concept. Kind
Yeah.
of pops up. You looked it up. It's a 1930s slang from
It's
African
from
American and jazz culture, right?
yeah.
And it's like, oh, he's cool, he's hip, he's doing the whatever, and then that
Well, there was a
progresses.
distinction. There's like, we don't want hot jazz anymore. We want cool jazz. That just flows. I think that
yeah, but there's a difference between the two of them. If you listen to like the original Memphis 5
Mhm.
and Benny Goodman, there's a difference. There's a difference between like Benny Goodman's got some like up stuff, and then if you listen to like Count Basie or Duke Ellington, right? And then in the 50s, it changes. It definitely there's a change between that big band feature, and it's not like so
well, yeah,
hot
or like
anymore.
you have like you had like the thing with like the you'd have the jazz with like lots of clarinets and stuff in like the early, like in like the 1930s and stuff, like the mama sort of like that with like the what was it gonna, like the New Orleans sort of Mardi Gras sort of sound, like and yeah, and then it definitely sort of became cooler in a way. But I guess like I just think that there is kind of like a sense of like coolness. I mean, this is probably like the 90s sort of.
Well, it's derived. So in the is it the 70s? When does Happy Days come out?
I think that was 70s and 80s, yeah.
Yeah,
Where,
so
like,
in
the Fonz,
in Happy Days, there's an episode apparently where like the Fonz is cool, right? He's got a leather jacket. He's kind of Italian. He hits the jukebox, and the music comes out. Hey, like that sort of thing, right? We have a kind of a notion of what's cool. What's cool in the 50s is like 50s and 60s, like Sinatra, and then Elvis becomes cool, and is cool. And then there's an episode of Happy Days where there's this guy who's into like, I don't know, I think it's like remote control airplanes or something, like something dorky, like like kites and remote control airplanes. Like, what is this? And then he dresses kind of funny, and then the Fonz does it, and everyone like realizes that it's okay, and they don't need to like take him out and murder him in a field or whatever they used to do to people who didn't fit in the 70s. Like,
right. Yeah.
It's funny, they used to they used to do terrible things to them. They're like, take him to the locker room and beat him to death. Like, what? He doesn't like the things we like.
It's funny though, because like you've often expressed like kind of the opposite sentiment, that you want to have like more homogenous sort of culture again, because like culture now is just so the opposite of that, with like,
well, so I'm trying to get to the point here. So that you had a sort of homogeneous culture, and everyone had the same 4 television channels, like Johnny Carson, like everyone kind of ingests the same thing. Like Dean Martin is cool. There's no question about this. Now it's in the 90s. In the 80s, it was metal.
Was it though? Like, I mean,
what the mainstream, like Van Halen and Motley Crue and all that, like that was cool. And then there was another couple of cool things.
The Flux
and in the 90s, it was grunge. Which is funny because they're all talking about how they're like disenchanted with the system, and they're all on like the biggest record labels in the world, like Nirvana. They're like, oh, I wanted to die and stuff. I'm sad. I don't like anything. Buy this shirt. It costs $100 at the store. Like, it's such a lie. Anyway.
Well, so actually, it's kind of funny. When I was trying to do like stand up for a while, which is a dumb kind of thing.
What's the deal with airline food?
In my 20s, I met this guy who was like, he's kind of like a promoter of stand up events, and he's from Seattle, and he actually used to work in a record store.
And then he did a line of coke and like.
No, he worked in a record store, and then like Kurt Cobain walked in, and he said. and he kind of asked him what he thought about like REM, and it's like I think that they're, you know, like they're kind of the guy Kurt Cobain asked him what he thought about REM because he bought some REM records, and it's like you know, I think they're kind of overrated, like they're not that great. And he's just like, oh really? I thought they were just like, you know, really kind of a revolutionary band. And it's just like, no, they're okay. And he's like, oh okay, and they just bought the record and walked out. And the next day he was like dead. And so like it's just like, you killed Kurt Cobain, man. Like we just said, like, oh yeah, REM are awesome. You know, it just he would have lived.
Give him a little mood buff, you know?
Just, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But when the internet came out,
Yeah.
is when because we started to get subcultures, because not everyone was into grunge in the 90s.
Yeah.
Not everyone
yeah.
was into metal in the
Shoegaze.
80s. Like
Yeah.
people were into disco and stuff in the 70s. Not everyone was into like Bob Dylan, but definitely Dylan was a big mainstream thing.
Oh yeah.
Like big money there. But when the internet came out, if 10,000 people across the entirety of the United States were into something, they could now all talk to each other on the same the same time. Like they could all get on the internet and go on a message board and just talk about their passion, the thing that they were really interested in. Even before the days of Facebook and Twitter, on that, like message boards, like I used to go on message boards all the time. Like people who were super dorky could get together and talk about the things that they were super dorky about, and they would find people who were even more obsessed about them than they were, and they would just kind of like feed off each other, right?
It seems like
and that's
like,
what we have now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know though, because I think that's the millennium sort of paradigm, but like it seems like the Gen Z paradigm is sort of like it's becoming very political. Like you have kids who are sort
what's
of
going on there, and I don't want to know.
With Gen Z.
Yeah, just get like a torch at the end of a really long pole and just keep them back.
Yeah, it's
I'm too old. I'm too old to understand. I don't want to fit in with them, John. No. At a certain point, you become too old to fit in, and it's no longer appropriate, John. It's no longer appropriate to try to fit in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Cue.
Oh,
cue the meme. What are you doing?
I'm getting it up again.
Well, it's faster. Like I led
hard.
into it.
It's hard. It's too.
If you were Gen Z,
okay,
you would have had it queued up before I started talking.
I did. I have it here.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
I like how the shirt says music with the lightning bolt band. That's a nice touch.
It is a nice touch, yeah. It's just because when I push the thing, I have to push like share screen, and I have to go to all my tabs and find the right tab.
There was such a lead into it, though. I was like making it so obvious, and you were like standing there, like oh, I agree. Yeah. Yes,
I agree.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Yeah, you definitely can be too old. Yeah.
Keep speaking. There's only so much filler. There's only so many pregnant pauses I can insert into my verbal diarrhea, Jonathan.
I know, but it was, yeah, we got it. It's all good. We'll fix it in post.
Just kidding.
Yeah. I mean, I eventually do some of these videos, man. It'll be glorious.
I definitely don't think we're going to get a more homogenous culture, and it's not really possible, and I don't see how one would occur without there being some sort of like blackout.
Well, no. Well,
if we all had to eat rabbits.
No, but I do think
that with string.
I do think that one thing that is kind of incentivizing, and I don't think it's a good thing, but I do think that there is kind of like that young people are sort of becoming more political. I think that people are sort of identifying themselves based on their politics and what they believe about current issues. And I do think that things are sort of becoming more sort of you belong to either this group or that group amongst young people.
That's a serious problem.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
It's a serious problem because a lot of these positions are taken on faith and not taken on
Oh yeah,
not
100%.
taken on reason.
Yeah.
And it's different too. It becomes very different from something like, say, the Protestant Reformation, where there's an immediate fragmentation amongst the parties.
Yeah.
Like you do get a, and there's also reconciliatory factors amongst the parties, like Erasmus and these various other humanists are like, okay, well, like let's not maybe light them on fire. But now it's just like that's not an option.
Yeah.
You can see that. You can see that with the way that both sides are dealing with King Charles
Okay.
in the news.
Is that happening in the news? Like, I mean, I haven't. Like, I guess I
For anyone from America listening, a king is like a
Yeah.
president, except not stupid beyond all possible belief. Okay, so anyway,
Right.
King Charles III, very well educated man. He has many positions which he has taken
Mhm.
on various things, and they're not one way or another. When he thinks like maybe we should care about the environment, he doesn't mean that we should ever have children again. He means that we should care about the environment because you shouldn't have a tire fire in your front yard and pour diesel fuel into your garden bed if you want to have nice flowers. That's just
freedom.
It's common sense, people. Yeah, freedom, America.
1776. More than enough.
That is the essence of America right there.
Right there. Yeah.
Freedom.
Freedom.
He also says things like we should embrace our traditions and not be crazy people. You know, for example, when he was much younger, which doesn't narrow it down at this point, but when he was much younger,
Right. Yeah.
he got into a competition with an architect and said, "You lot don't know what you're doing. Everything you make looks like trash. I'm going to make something better." And he made a town called Poundbury.
Oh yeah.
Using traditional English architecture. He laid it out really nice. I'd like to live in his model village. It seems like a really nice place. It's way better than the hellscapes of America that have come out of their concrete and glass revolutions, or the suburbs that they've created everywhere. It's a nice town.
Yeah.
He has common sense. But everyone in the media is like, he believes that we should eat bugs, or he believes that we should all whatever. Like there's because he's
He's like
of
they're
course he
trying
has
to
to talk to people who are globalists. He's the king.
They're trying to horn him into their sort of their camp or whatever, or they're trying
Well,
to
yeah,
or
he's
like
not.
or they're trying to horn him in. One group is trying to sort of like, well, because they basically everyone thinks he's a globalist, basically. Like, I mean, both the people who are in support of globalism and those who aren't in support of them, even though he's not really, yeah, or maybe
No,
he
you
is,
have
yeah,
to you have to read what he's actually said about things, and you
Right.
have to read what he's actually written about things, and he doesn't think that at all.
Right.
But everyone, this is why I say he's not like the president of the United States of America. He doesn't have to, because he's a king, and so he doesn't have to play popularity contest in 7th grade. He doesn't have to put on a whole like show, like da 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 da. Hey, you, I'm cool. How do you do, fellow kids? Like, he doesn't have to dress like he's in Striper and throw Bibles out into the audience, and he doesn't have to dress in a hoodie and a t-shirt with a skateboard that he would break his legs on, because he doesn't have to do that either. That's why it's a better option for running a country. But don't listen to me. No one ever listens to me.
Yeah, I mean,
That's basically, so that's an analogy basically for what Christians are supposed to be like. They're not supposed to care.
yeah. Well,
I don't care about what the fashion is. I don't care if this is what you're into. You know, this is
Yeah.
part of the problem with Francis's pontificate, is that he does swerve to sides.
Yeah, he does a
You
lot.
know,
Yeah.
you should care about immigrants, but you should not take in so many immigrants that it causes your country to economically collapse. that would be bad for the immigrants who are coming in, for goodness sake. Like the people who already came across and are trying to lead a new life and integrate into society.
It's hard to
Stop trying to stop them.
It's hard to like know though, because we we heard all these stories like even like during the ISIS crisis, about how like Germany brought in so many immigrants that there was like these like Muslim men just like just going around in like rape mobs and stuff like that. Just, but do we know that actually happened?
Well,
first
of all, do we know that it's true? Do we know like what is true on the internet? I mean, you showed us a clip of Alex Jones drinking whiskey and lifting a nugatory amount of weights. Like, and some people consider him a trusted news source, for goodness sake. Like they're like, he's got the truth.
I don't really trust any news sources though. Like, I mean, they're all just ideologues.
Yeah, well, I mean, this goes back to my point about the man with the machine that made everyone stupid somehow.
Yeah.
But the point is as Christians, we're supposed to love our neighbor. If someone comes to seek help, genuinely comes to seek help, you should help them. As a matter of fact, and this goes to this is it's a whole other can of worms, so we won't get into it. But like on the point of obedience, like St. Thomas says, if someone comes to seek alms at a monastery, even if the abbot expressly forbids the monks to give him alms, they are to disobey him. And when he said no, he meant yes, because it is the requirement of their profession of the vow of Christian charity that they make in their vow of poverty, chastity, and obedience, their vow of Christian charity, that they take care of the poor, because they've dedicated their lives to the gospel. And our Lord says that you need to help people who are in genuine need. Now, that doesn't mean that every single person who comes to your door,
the person who just like smells like a crack, who has like a crack pipe like hanging out of their lip or whatever.
You have reason to be like, no. Okay, but use your reason, use it. Try. I know it's hard that the machine made it go away, but maybe if you reach deep within yourself, who are you? You will find that your reason is in there, and you can use it to think your way through things.
It always helps to to read a book. I was gonna keep the meme again, but then I thought better.
Anyway, so we should care about immigrants, obviously.
Oh yeah, obviously.
But it's also to have no rules would be to not care about them, because then the ones that you let in, you would be letting them down. They came to presumably, we're assuming that they come to the country because they want a better life.
Yeah.
If you can't give them that better life, what have you done?
Well, like in our own town, I mean, like there was a person who had immigrated from Ukraine for like 2 weeks, and he got stabbed at a bus stop. I mean, that's kind of it's not really a better life. He's probably safer. He's probably safer in Ukraine. Yeah.
He survived. He survived getting carpet bombed, and then is like he tries to go to work on the bus, and he gets shanked.
Yeah.
In a country where he barely speaks the language. Like, what's going on there? That's terrible.
Yeah, pretty bad.
Get it together.
Yeah.
And it's so my point politically, the king is a sort of an apolitical figure. Yeah. He doesn't belong to a sort of a camp. As Christians, we're the same thing. We don't belong to a camp. What we belong to is the gospel.
Yeah.
Which is something that maybe we should read. Yes. And when it's being read, we should pay attention. And maybe we should pay attention and study it a little bit harder.
Yeah, rather than trying to follow the coolness.
The cool thing. Like, oh, I'm going to go be a Democrat. I'm going to do the cool thing. Or I'm going to be a Republican. I'm going to do the cool thing. Like, neither of those things are good.
Yeah.
That's why they're being called. That's why they're being touted as cool. Because
at the same time, though, like I think like the like the bagpipe sort of thing is just kind of a little bit over the top, of like just I mean, I think it's good to protest SatanCon or whatever. I mean, sure, that's good. I mean, I don't know if you need bagpipes to do that, but
Why not?
so do you like the bagpipes or not? I wanted to get your take on that.
Well, there's two types of people in the world, Jonathan. People who like the bagpipes and barbarians.
Well, I guess I fall into the latter.
Well,
I don't hate.
but your ancestors they have a sort of historical trauma of Highlanders coming and shooting at them, I'm sure. So most continental Europeans are terrified of the bagpipes because it usually means that a hairy man in a skirt is going to come and stab you with a bayonet. Understandable.
Yeah, I wonder.
It's kind of like when you hear a tiger growl at midnight, like if you heard a tiger growling at midnight, you would just jump. You would have this sort of primeval terror.
Oh yeah,
right?
I didn't even think about that. Like that it's a kind of combative thing. Like that does make more sense.
They're the
Yeah,
war
because-
pipes.
Yeah, that does make more sense. I can see why they were doing it now, rather than I thought it was like because they thought it was, I don't know. Yeah, I thought it was just because it was kind of like a cool thing, but but not cool. So I don't
No,
know.
it's a sort of a church. I think they've adopted it as kind of a militant
church
thing.
militant thing, yeah.
The line of Napoleon: "Have you nothing to offer me but these Amazons?"
Mm-hmm.
As the Highlanders advance at Waterloo to lay down the law.
Good times. Well, as we lay down the law, we probably should eventually lay down our
Lay
heads.
down on a pillow and
Go to bed.
resume unconsciousness.
Resume unconsciousness, yes. And remember,
You will receive your reward in purgatory.
In purgatory, indeed. Good night, everyone.